bring the lights down low. Time for blood to flow. Ghosts and ghouls, you know what we mean. We're all the terror that makes you scream. Some movies creep, some make you leap. There's killer plants or blobs. We cover them all on your favorite pod. So many horrors we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Because the call is coming from inside the room. Life ends pretty fast. Some screams fade, but some chills will last. The killers stalk and then they slash. It's the 30-something movie podcast. The clock rings out the midnight chimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. And if you're in space, they can't hear you scream.
It is the 30-something movie podcast. It is the end. We've come to the end.
Quite literally. Quite literally.
It is the end. It is the end of
the
month of madness.
Are you gonna drop the Doors tune in there? Because that would be pretty cool. I'm just saying.
Yeah. That'd be pretty good.
And now I'm forcing you to edit it because I'm interrupting you.
No. I'm probably actually gonna drop in the Carpenters instead.
All right, well,
Yeah.
Got to drop something in it.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is the end.
This is in the mouth of madness, my friends. So get ready for a surreal trip into, I don't know, reality, not reality, Hobbs End, Castle Rock. I don't know, Innsmouth. I mean, pick one. We're either diving into a H.P. Lovecraft hellscape or a nice, sweet little New England town. Or maybe they're both. I don't know. I haven't been to New England recently, so I wouldn't be able to tell. It's in the mouth of madness. It is John Carpenter. Spoiler alert. We do spoil freely here, so if we mention a movie title and you're like, I don't want to hear anything about that one, just skip ahead a little bit, and we'll move right past that. Make sure you go to our website, 30podcast.com, where you can leave a rating, a voicemail. You could join us over on Patreon and get access to all the bonus episodes that we've got over there, all the bonus privileges over there as well. So with us for the last time this month, not the last time ever, but the last time this month, is part of the month of madness, is Rob Perry. Rob is one of our Patreon co-executive producers, and you have been trapped in this podcast town with us, and you haven't been able to escape for pretty much the entire month of October.
I keep trying to jerry-rig a car and get out of here, but I can't. I keep coming back.
Yep. Just like in Godfather Part 3, just when you thought you were out, we pull you back in.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize to all of our listeners for having referenced Godfather Part 3. We'll leave it at that.
That's worthy of references, I think. At the very
I can
least.
reference it. I mean, I reference that line all the time. My wife even knows that. If I'm running late getting home from work, she texts me the GIF that is Al Pacino, saying that exact line. So, but yes, this is the last of the Apocalypse trilogy, starting with The Thing and Prince of Darkness, and finishing off with In the Mouth of Madness. I'm gonna jump ahead right now and say, good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun. I really enjoyed John Carpenter movies, so I kind of knew, even though I hadn't seen this one, I knew going into it, I'm like, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this movie, and it did not disappoint. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and again, I'm probably jumping ahead of myself a little bit. I'm watching this movie going, this is why they got Sam Neill for Event Horizon. I understand now. I very much understand. Creepy. He can be a creepy dude when needs arise. So, yeah. But we'll go more into that. This one came out on August 10th, 1994. Rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 35 minutes, directed by John Carpenter, who also did Halloween and The Thing. Writer for this one was Michael DeLuca, who did Judge Dredd and Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, but we won't hold that against him. For this movie, at least. Producers were Sandy King and Michael DeLuca. Sandy King did They Live and Ghosts of Mars. Michael DeLuca did Blade and A History of Violence. Composer was John Carpenter, did the music for Escape from New York and Halloween. Cinematographer was Gary B. Kibb, who did Prince of Darkness and Village of the Damned, the 1995 version. Editor was Edward A. Warshilka, who did Big Trouble in Little China and Starman. Production company New Line Cinema, budget $8 million, worldwide box office $8.9 million. So it did not make a lot of money. Flickmetrics gives it a 65%, and CinemaScore did not have a score for this one. Sam Neill plays John Trent. He was in Jurassic Park and Event Horizon. Julie Carmen was Linda Stiles. She was in Fright Night Part 2 and Gloria. Jürgen Prochnow played Sutter Kane. He was in Das Boot and The Seventh Sign. David Warner, who passed away in 2022, played Dr. Wren. He was in The Omen and Titanic. John Glover was Dr. Saperstein. He was in Gremlins 2, The New Batch, and Batman and Robin. Charlton Heston, who passed away in 2008, played Jackson Harglow. He was in Planet of the Apes and Ben-Hur. Bernie Casey, who passed in 2017, was Robinson. He was in Revenge of the Nerds and Never Say Never Again. Peter Jason played Mr. Paul. He was in They Live and Escape from L.A. Frances Bay, who passed in 2011, played Mrs. Pickman. She was in Blue Velvet and Happy Gilmore. Wilhelm von Homburg, who passed away in 2004, was Simon. He was in Die Hard and
Ghostbusters 2.
Yes, Vigo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hayden Christensen makes an appearance in this one as a paperboy, and we know him from the Star Wars prequels and the movie Jumper. He delivered the newspapers, and not just to the men, but the women and children too.
Yeah.
He was such a cute little kid in this movie. I'm picturing his report cards from his teachers. Does not play well with other children. Not a pleasure to have in class. That's just my thoughts. Quick little trivia on this one. The character of Sutter Kane was heavily inspired by real-life horror author Stephen King. They even, a few times, even mention Stephen King in this movie. And, you know, kind of a nod to Stephen King's popularity at this point as one of the best-selling authors of all time, that, you know, Kane's books are so popular that they just cause this mass hysteria, and everybody wants them. Everybody's clamoring for these books. And even the covers of the Sutter Kane novels in the movie were designed to kind of mimic that style of Stephen King's book covers from like the 80s and the 90s. What are Stephen King's books? If you cut those out and like put them together, would you get some kind of a secret map to somewhere? Or I feel like it's like card collecting in the 80s and 90s. You know, if you got those special cards and you flipped them over and then you collected all 9 of them, it made some kind of like grid where it was like a much bigger poster that you could put together.
Yep.
Yeah, just a note, I did watch this today with the commentary, and Carpenter flat out said that Mike DeLuca was really trying to ape H.P. Lovecraft, but obviously Stephen King was the audience representative for the fictional author of Sutter Kane.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah. Well, and what's fun about this one is I don't know that I've ever seen a really good representation of a Lovecraft story in movies or TV. And granted, I just might not have come across them, but I did really enjoy just some of the stuff that that slid into this movie, and even some of the creatures we get to see at the end. Now, you made a face when I said that, so do you have recommendations for me? Dagon. Okay.
Castle Freak.
Okay.
Stuart Gordon. I mean, Reanimator is very, very, very loosely based.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about Reanimator. Yep.
From Beyond is a little bit closer, but Dagon is very, very close to really good adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft.
All right. So those are now on the watch list. So we know what I'm doing when we're done recording tonight. Let's see what else. Yeah, I already mentioned the Hayden Christensen thing. Yeah, there's a couple of kind of fun homages to Lovecraft in this. You know, even the name of the movie itself is similar to one of the names of Lovecraft's works, At the Mountains of Madness. There's even some, I think, Sam Neill at least once or twice drops like direct quotes from Lovecraft. I think it's when they are approaching the church for the first time, and he's describing something about the church, and I'm forgetting what the line is, but I'm watching the movie and I hear him, speak a line of dialogue, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's been a while since I've read Lovecraft, but I feel like that's a line right out of one of his books, one of his stories. So, so a lot of really fun, fun homages to Lovecraft and his storytelling, and just the whole idea of people being driven insane by the unspeakable things they see and stuff like that. Now I've read a little bit of Lovecraft, not a ton. I would have to go to my sister, who has read a whole lot more Lovecraft than I have. Rob, have you read your fair share of Lovecraft, or what's kind of your exposure to it?
I most certainly have. Not as much as I probably should with my pedigree as being a fan of horror. But yes, I mean, Lovecraft is dripping all over this movie, and all over the story. I mean, the Stephen King stuff for me kind of takes a back seat. It's so much Lovecraft in this movie.
And Pat, I'm going to assume that you probably have not read too much Lovecraft.
I would definitely be that end of the
Okay.
spectrum. And by not too much, I have not read Lovecraft or any of Lovecraft.
Okay.
Or taken a trip on Lovecraft.
Okay.
It's
okay.
Fine.
Did you? So here's a question. Did you know there was an author named H.P. Lovecraft before we started recording?
I did not.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. This is like uncharted. I am just an eternal student in this particular genre of movies and film and pop culture.
I'm trying to decide if it would do any good for me to get you like a H.P. Lovecraft book as like a Christmas present or something. I don't know. Would we still be friends if I gave that to you? I'm not sure.
John, we would always be friends, and I would love it. But my dilemma right now is my to read book list.
Yeah.
Is like, you know what? But Rob has a point. Point of order.
What's your watching schedule like?
Oh, I can make time for watching schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Lovecraft Country.
Oh, yeah.
The HBO series is probably one of the most wonderful introductory series or shows or movies or anything that will introduce you to the world of Lovecraft, but flip everything that was terrible about the guy in real life on its head, because he was a horrendously awful racist. Fine author, but had a lot of ideas about people that were different from him that would not gel in modern times by any means. And sometimes it seeps through in some of his works. Yeah. But the show is phenomenal. It really introduces you to that entire world.
All right.
I highly recommend it to anybody who just would like to dip their toe into H.P. Lovecraft. And it does. It is such an amazing feat that they were able to take something that is so beloved by people who love H.P. Lovecraft and his works and turn it into something that is absolutely horrific, but actually has an amazing modern take on relationships and racism and other things in it.
That show is on my watch list. I have not had a chance to get it started yet, but ever since I saw that was coming out, I'm like, okay, when I get a moment, I definitely want to watch this one. So
nice.
Let that be a lesson to you, boys and girls who are listening. H.P. Lovecraft was a racist, and now he's dead. So don't be racist.
Yes. We're connecting the dots for him.
This message brought to you by the 30-something PSA podcast. Thank you for joining us. In a world Where reality unravels, insurance investigator John Trent must find missing horror author Sutter Kane. As Trent delves deeper into Kane's world, he confronts terrifying visions and questions his own sanity. In the mouth of madness, where nightmares become reality.
This one will drive you absolutely mad.
The riots began because the stores could not meet the demand of Sutter Kane's novel, In the Mouth of Madness.
Kane disappeared 2 months ago without a trace.
You're the guy that writes horror books.
You can forget about Stephen King. Kane outsells them all. I need to know if he's alive or dead, and I need that book.
It's a setup. I just have to work out how it's set up.
Kane's writing has been known to have an effect on his readers.
See this? It's a map.
This whole thing has been staged.
You just get out.
This is not reality.
It's all happening for real, Trent.
I know this book will drive people crazy.
Well, let's hope so. The movie comes out next month.
All right. 10 major moments for this one. We break the story down into 10 major moments so you don't have to. We start the movie off opening with John Trent in a psychiatric hospital amidst an unspecified disaster of some kind. Dr. Chancellor Gorkon visits him to hear his story, setting up the flashback narrative of how Trent came to be in the asylum in the first place and the mysterious events that have led to the world's downfall. And probably one of my favorite and one of the funniest lines in the whole movie. Sorry about the balls. It was a lucky shot.
Yes. Hey, and you said that Dr. Chancellor Gorkon was there.
Mm-hmm.
I might be way off with this, but wasn't that also the interrogator from the Cardassians that when they captured Picard, or was that a different guy?
Yeah, that was him.
So, I mean, so I was sitting there in the psychiatric, I wanted him to turn a light. Like, how many lights do you see? Like, honestly, when I saw that, oh my gosh. So,
And do you know what other voice he played in one of the greatest animated series of all times?
I want you to tell me, John.
Allow me to introduce you to Ra's al Ghul from the Batman animated series.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. He is just in so many things that I love. So
that creep can roll, man. That creep can roll.
Yep.
But that was what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the lights to come on and him to ask Sam Neill, like, how many lights do you see?
Yeah. Sorry about the balls. Trent, a freelance insurance investigator, meets with a client from the insurance company when he is attacked by a crazed man wielding an axe who asks if he reads Sutter Kane. And really enjoyed how this guy, as he's asking that question, sounds a lot like movie trailer guy. Do you read Sutter Kane? I mean, it sounds like he's about to go into In a World where... Just kind of a lot of fun. But then the attacker is shot dead by police. The man is revealed to be Kane's agent, who was driven mad after reading one of Kane's books, setting the tone for the rest of the craziness that's about to come. And we keep getting all these little hints here and there that stuff's not right in the world. Like, things are not going well. And basically, we're kind of blaming the books of Sutter Kane for some of this, but we don't quite know that just yet. But we're getting little hints here and there that there's just a lot of chaos. There's a lot of disorder. There's things are coming unraveled. So Trent is hired by Arcane Publishing's director, Jackson Harglow, to investigate the disappearance of horror novelist Sutter Kane and retrieve that final manuscript. He ends up getting partnered with editor Linda Stiles, who explains that Kane's books have kind of a history of affecting unstable readers, causing paranoia and disorientation. And Trent pretty much stays skeptical throughout this whole thing, kind of convinced it's all a marketing stunt. I'd like to back up for just a second. The fact that the agent was wielding an axe and gunned down and killed by police could possibly be part of a marketing stunt. I mean, that's corporate greed. Wayland Yutani would love for that to be a marketing stunt that they could pull off.
That's a heck of a commitment to the marketing.
I mean,
pre-internet era. I mean, you had to really, really go for it.
That's true. That's true. You gotta put yourself out there, and it's all for the book. Why are you kissing me? It's good for the book. Trent notices some strange red lines on the cover of Kane's books, which form a map of New Hampshire when aligned correctly. And then if you cross your eyes and step slightly away, it looks like a picture of a schooner. After a harrowing night of driving, they encounter the bridges of Madness County, and that leaves them to Hobbs End, a town thought to be fictional, but which they soon discover to be very, very real. And as they drive through the night, some bizarre things are happening, get some bizarre imagery going on, and they arrive in Hobbs End in daylight, crossing that threshold into this nightmarish world where fiction has become reality. The little town of Hobbs End mirrors the locations and people that have been described in Kane's books up to this point, and this is kind of getting increasingly unsettling. Though he still believes, Trent still believes, this is a very elaborate stage hoax. I mean, we're talking, this has got to be the most elaborate hoax of all time. But this guy is, what did they say? He's basically sold billions of books at this point, and if anybody was going to pull off a hoax like this, I guess it would be related to this greatest selling author of all time. Linda, however,
be the guy.
Oh yeah. Did you say something, Pat?
I was just saying he'd be the guy to do it if there was one.
Yeah. Linda, however, less sure about this, especially as they kind of encounter more and more terrifying things and beings. There's a creepy painting in the place that they're staying, and she actually reveals that the claim of Kane's disappearance was a publicity stunt, but kind of insists that what they are experiencing goes way beyond the deception that had been planned here. Linda ends up entering a church and meets Sutter Kane there, who exposes her to his final novel, In the Mouth of Madness, which drives her insane once she sees it. She begins to embrace Kane and his monstrous transformation, which I will, at this point going forward, if it ever shows up again, we'll be referring to it as Kawato. And she becomes a kind of a puppet of his twisted agenda as well. Meanwhile, the town itself descends further into chaos, with a man committing suicide after proclaiming that he was merely a character written to do it. In a really weird Jessica Rabbit twist, I'm not bad, I was just written this way. Trent tries to flee Hobbs End, but is repeatedly transported back to the town, unable to escape. Linda tries to attack him and takes on this creepy new monstrous form, which love that scene when she starts, contorting herself and like crab walking backwards and
that's a little weird.
The one line that passed through my head, I knew it wasn't going to be in this movie, but the one line that passed through my head as she's climbing out of the car and contorting herself was for her to say, "You found me beautiful once, honey. You got real ugly."
Got real ugly
and twisty. So Linda tries to attack him. As Trent tries to get away, he spots Linda again with bike riding Keith Richards riding alongside him. And after crashing his car, he finds himself inside the church, where Kane reveals the truth, that his writings have unlocked the power of ancient monstrous beings known as the Old Ones, which, if you know and love Lovecraft, you've heard this before. Kane explains that Trent is one of his characters meant to return the manuscript and further the apocalypse. Kane gives Trent the manuscript and rips open reality itself. This was a really cool part of the movie. I really enjoyed this one, revealing a portal to the dimension of the monstrous Old Ones. Trent is chased by the horrific creatures through the tunnel that he will come back to later on in Event Horizon, and ultimately escapes back to what seems like reality. Trent ends up on a bus back to New York, where he ends up sitting next to a very talkative older woman who we will be calling the real Mouth of Madness. Upon returning to New York, Trent destroys the manuscript, believing that he can stop the madness. But you can't stop the madness. Trent meets with Harglow, who denies knowing anything about anybody named Linda, and reveals that the manuscript had already been delivered months earlier. In the Mouth of Madness has been on sale for weeks, and a film adaptation is in post-production. It's coming out next month. Reality unravels even further when Trent encounters a reader whose eyes are bleeding after reading the novel, prompting Trent to murder him with an axe, as you do. After Trent recounts his story, Dr. Chancellor Gorkon dismisses it as a hallucination. Trent wakes up to find the asylum abandoned, and outside the world is in chaos, with monstrous creatures, mass hysteria taking over, cats and dogs living together. He goes to a theater to watch the end of Blazing Saddles, only to see himself as the main character. Realizing that he is a work of fiction, he laughs and cries hysterically as his final grasp on reality slips away. And that's the end of the world. We're all dead. We hope that you've enjoyed the 30-something movie podcast. This has been the final episode. We have all succumbed to the Mouth of Madness. Bye.
Boom, 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 boom. Turn the lights down low. Boom, 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 boom.
I'm going to, we're going to go to some deep thoughts, but instead of playing the normal deep thought sound, I actually want to play a little bit of the John Carpenter theme for In the Mouth of Madness. This version that I have, I feel like it sounds a little bit different than what is played in front of the movie. I am pulling this from the, by the way, I know that we are more than knee deep in the month of October, but if anybody needs any kind of a musical playlist for the month of October, I highly, highly recommend anything of John Carpenter's, the anthology John Carpenter album, the Lost Themes 1, Lost Themes 2. Is there a Lost Themes 3 at this point? I know there's a 1 and 2. Okay, all right. Basically, that stuff, anything John Carpenter, any of those 3 albums in particular, that is usually on regular rotation in my car, in my office when I'm working from October 1st, whenever I have an excuse to like not make it seem like I'm really creepy. Whenever I can start playing this music openly, October 1st, that's when this will start getting played for me. But this version of it is coming directly from the John Carpenter anthology album, which is his movie themes, I believe, 1974 to 1996. I think it is. But great album. So go check that out if you enjoy a little John Carpenter in your life.
There it is.
So part of you thinks that you're getting maybe the creepy themes that he's done for Halloween or some of his other pieces. No, we're going directly to Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
If there's a soundtrack to the apocalypse, I want John Carpenter writing it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, bring that sucker on.
Yeah. That was my thought exactly. I'm like, huh. Because I've heard this piece of music before, and I knew from listening to it before that it was from In the Mouth of Madness, but having never seen the movie, I'm like, wow, this doesn't sound like horror music, but all right, we'll go with it. And the moment the movie starts, the moment that starts to play, I'm like, oh, I've bought the ticket to the train, I'm on board, I'm ready to go. Like, sign me up for the Apocalypse Express. All right. Deep thoughts on this one. It is the first time I have seen this one. Pat, I think you said it's the first time you've seen this one.
Yep, first time.
Okay, Rob, definitely not the first time you've seen this one.
Certainly not.
Okay.
Certainly not at all.
All right. Patrick, let's start with you. How does this movie, deep down inside, before the bowels are ripped from you and you have tentacles, flying out of every orifice, how does this movie make you feel?
Well, it was a heck of a lot of fun. I get where they're going about the grip on reality. And, it's funny as I'm sitting here ruminating on these movies that we've watched. And like I said, as we've said last week and we've said in weeks previous and all that with these movies, it's definitely a new genre for me. But I am constantly surprised with how much I feel like I've seen similar things in episodes of Star Trek. And and now that might seem like a big leap considering this, but I feel like there's been episodes where, characters are left questioning their sanity, and are they in a story or are they out of story? And so it's funny because as I'm watching this and I feel like, oh my gosh, this is like a brand new genre and I don't know it's like, okay, no, I feel like I've seen things like this before. I've seen, just to at least give me a frame of reference. And so as I'm watching this and I just am enjoying as he slips more and more into madness and reality goes and he's just a character in the book and all of that, I just kind of just settled back and enjoy the ride. So, there was the gross out parts and the freak out parts and tentacles and all sorts of other weird stuff. But just kind of sat back and enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. My understanding is, and I'm going to blank on the guy's name, but my understanding is that there was a writer that actually worked with Lovecraft who was a writer for the original series in Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I've read that before. I'm blanking on the name. I feel like I had the name at one point and I should have written it down. But, I feel like any times where you get, if you want to pull a little Lovecraftian stuff, and I could almost guarantee that anybody who's a TV or movie writer has probably, especially if you're writing science fiction, you probably at some point have read some Lovecraft or you've been exposed to it in some way. So I wouldn't be shocked to find out that in some of the Trek episodes where there's a little bit more, I don't know, where the alien or the villain is just so beyond humanity that it just does not care for us little ants. I feel like there might be some examples of that you'd get, even if it's just little piecemeal stuff here and there in Star Trek. I'd have a hard time believing that Star Trek will have gone for as long as it's gone without incorporating some of those elements.
Well, H.P. Lovecraft dealt with, the old ones or the ancient ones in his texts were cosmic horror. That's how he described them. Yeah. So they were from not of this world, not of this universe, really, but from for all intents and purposes, for him and his time, outer space beings that were not. They weren't like Martians invading from Mars. They were beings in a universe that were going to invade us. Mm-hmm. So that's everybody says H.P. Lovecraft when he talks about the ancient ones, it's cosmic horror, and it's things that if you see them, you're going to go insane. You can't speak their names. Cthulhu, you can't say Cthulhu, you will go insane.
Yeah.
So that was Lovecraft's whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, and I'm just thinking of some to your point, Pat, thinking of some Star Trek examples. I think of the different times where you've got some otherworldly being that basically is just treating humanity as a source of experimentation. I'm thinking of you got the Next Generation episodes with Nagilum. That might be kind of an example. You got the Doomsday machine from the original series. I think of that as maybe kind of a quasi example of that. But that's where it might be a little tough for that to mix too much with Star Trek, because Star Trek has always been fairly optimistic. And Lovecraft is, if he's anything, he's definitely not optimistic. He's like, if you could take optimism and go as far to the other end as possible. And then when you've gotten there, dig a hole that's maybe, I don't know, half a mile deep and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I guarantee there's got to be some elements here and there, in Star Trek and in some of the other sci-fi stuff we've watched.
Yes, I like, and I didn't mean to take us on a tangent away from talking about this movie, but I feel like what I used to think was a genre that I just could not relate to. Now I find that, like, man, a lot of these themes, and there's little touches of that in much of the things that I've watched before.
Sci-fi and horror overlap rather well. They really are peanut butter and jelly to each other in as far as genres go. I mean, you don't walk into a comic convention and see people like doing too many Blues Brothers, cosplaying. You see elements from horror films, and you see them from sci-fi films, you see them from anime, because there's so many elements that are related. I mean, they're both fear of the unknown in many respects.
One of the things I love about this movie is just how, and I certainly saw Event Horizon and multiple times before I ever saw this movie. Now I wish I had seen this movie first. Like, it doesn't ruin Event Horizon for me at all. Like, I still really enjoy that. That movie creeps the heck out of me. But I feel like I would have had an even better appreciation for what Event Horizon was paying tribute to had I seen this movie first. Because Sam Neill that man can play insane like nobody's business.
I'll go one step further. I will go one step way further. Movie called Possession.
Yes, it's actually on I think it's either on Tubi or somewhere else right now, and I've got it, and I'm like, I need to watch this.
I've this is probably not the first time I've told you to watch it.
Yeah, I know.
but it's 1981.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's Sam Neill, like, super young, and he plays somebody who's going insane. So, of course, I saw In the Mouth of Madness and Event Horizon, but you go back all the way to Possession, and you're like, well, why wasn't Sam Neill a huge name until Jurassic Park? Because it is baffling, because he had actually and John Carpenter said on the commentary track that he actually directed a movie and was hawking it at the Toronto Film Festival when they were still working on post-production for In the Mouth of Madness. And what had just dropped when that happened was Jurassic Park. And since they were still in production for this movie, Sandy King, who was on the commentary track as well, said that they actually had to hire extra security for him, and he had no idea why. He had no idea, being from New Zealand and shopping around in a little independent film in Toronto, that Jurassic Park had become a nuclear bomb at the box office. Yeah. He had absolutely no idea. So to see him go from one of the biggest movies of all time to this movie, and then Event Horizon, which I enjoy very, very much, but also didn't do as well. But you can go all the way back to Possession and see that this guy has had the crazy acting chops for forever.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I looked it up real quick because I'm like, I got to remember where I had found that. It's actually the local library. If anybody has like the Hoopla app, where you can usually go through your local library and get content through there, it's actually free through the Hoopla app and the Canopy app right now. But it's also on Shudder, and I gotta renew my Shudder subscription for the month ahead. So, or I guess we're at the end of October now. So I have been enjoying Shudder for the last month. We'll say that.
Yes.
When will horror be now?
Remember, a library subscription.
Yes. Remember to renew Shudder. Go back in time and tell myself. So one of the things that I really, really enjoy about any of these type of, even if it's not Sam Neill, but I really enjoy, and this probably sounds a little dark and a little twisted, a little morbid, I enjoy watching a descent into madness. And I enjoy watching it done well. Pat, you and I think we're just astounded when we watch Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
And really,
Yeah.
really enjoyed that one. And just that, when I think of horror, probably the horror that I am intrigued by the most is this type of horror. It's the making you question your reality, making you question. I'm all for jump scares. Everybody knows I love a good gore fest. If you want to have eruptions of blood just spewing out of a hole in the wall, yes, give me that stuff too. But I think the ones that make me think the most, and the ones that I come away from the movie going, wow, that was a different kind of experience, and I'm all for it. I think it's movies like this. I think when done well, watching a descent into madness, and that's a combination of the writing, the storytelling, but also the acting, the portrayal of the whole thing. When it's done right, it's so much fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sam Neill is the avatar for the audience. The audience is questioning what is really going on through this, and he's skeptical. I mean, they have a great scene in the beginning where it sets up his whole character, where he's busting a guy for faking doing insurance fraud, and he's just a sarcastic little jerk for the first half of the movie, and he never changes. He's just I've got everything figured out. I'm smarter than everybody. And he's so perfectly, and then it's just subtle where he starts losing his grip on everything. It's so very well done. Absolutely. I'm right there with you, John. When you have a character go from so up high and so well developed to just slowly seeing them lose it, if it's done well, it's wonderful to watch.
Yeah. And just, and the whole, once you get to the town, like the creepiness of the town, like small towns creep me out. And I think sometimes rightfully so, but just you get to this location and it is just, it's abandoned. And you start to meet some of the denizens of this town and the children. Oh, just the children of the corn, creepy little, you're our mommy now. It's mommy's day. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
nope. Nope. Somebody had an axe in an earlier scene, and I'm going to go back and see if I can find it.
Right.
Yeah. Like creepy little crapbag kids. And some of the set pieces in this too, like the church. And to find out that is actually a real building somewhere.
Yes. They talked a great deal about that. It was an Eastern Orthodox church in Canada. There was a lot of talk about how they filmed this in Canada because New Line Cinema was going very non-union projects.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And they actually went up to Canada, and this was a union project, but they used a lot of the people who had actually worked with David Cronenberg. Mm-hmm. So that's why a lot of the set pieces and a lot of set design and everything looks very Cronenberg and not so much Carpenter. But they actually stumbled upon this place. And John Carpenter said that he actually spotted it looking for something else and saw it over the horizon and said, we need to go there. And when they found that it was an actual church, they the producer, Sandy King, said that they talked to the priest and learned that he had been having a hard time getting the interior of the church finished. And they said, we will pay for all of the carpeting in your church if you let us film here. And the only agreement that they had was, okay, don't do anything really strange, creepy on the outside or the interior of the church, and we'll be good to go. And so they did. And the priest apparently took a little bit of flack for it, but ultimately everybody was okay with it because once you got inside the church, it was a set. And it wasn't, they didn't do anything to the interior of the church.
Yeah. Yeah. The locations in this, and as you said, like a lot of this, a lot of this doesn't necessarily look like Carpenter. And one of the things that I had heard, and maybe this was in the commentary too, was he really wanted a higher budget on this, and they did not give it to him. And I can only imagine with the stuff that they were already doing, like some of the digital effects they were doing, but even the old ones, like when you see those creatures, and you don't see much of them because of the way everything is edited, but I can only imagine if he had been given that higher budget, what he would have been able to do with it to make it even creepier.
He actually said that they did not show the creatures on purpose. Mm-hmm. He said he only wanted to have glimpses.
Okay.
He said, you know, if we're going with the whole Lovecraft thing, if you see too much of these, everybody's going to go insane.
Yeah.
So we're only going to show glimpses. And he said, look, I know that they're rubber monsters. Mm-hmm. I can tell that they're rubber monsters. So showing them sparingly just keeps the audience just on their edge, just enough. And he said, you know, he was raving. He said that K&B Effects, Kurtzman and Terraberger, did so many monsters. He said they did so many creatures that they could not possibly have shown all of them.
Yeah.
So they just kind of picked which ones looked best, photographed the best. And like that whole tunnel, that was an actual set that they built. Yeah. And it was very purposeful that they had to have this scene where the monsters are chasing him out. But you know, he said that a lot of things were getting back to the budget. Robert Shea, who had, you know, just fell flat on his face for Freddy's Dead, was Sandy King didn't pull any punches in the commentary talking about how he was messing with them in the budget. Mm-hmm. That the actual budget was actually closer to $13 million, but he kept pulling back and saying, no, it's this, and they were like, no, we're hitting this number. And she talked about some really interesting calculating and exchange rate finagling that they did to actually add money to the budget. So, but Carpenter talks extensively about how that, you know, the production team really did figure, and he mentioned several times that when you don't have a big movie that deserves big set pieces and you don't have the budget for it, you do montages. And he talks about every time there's a montage in a movie, it was like we needed to get an effect that something much greater and bigger is happening, but we don't have the budget for it. So there was some of that, and he was rather nice about his relationship with New Line Cinema. Sandy King, not so much.
That's what I yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's some of the stuff that I enjoy. I think one of the things I really enjoy about John Carpenter's movies is just how good he is at world building. You know, just the development of the characters, the backstory, he's got just these legends. I mean, I think if you like Big Trouble in Little China, like there's so much great world building in that, in The Thing, in you know, Prince of Darkness, I feel like there's some good world building there. I do feel like, you know, story wise, it's maybe a little bit more slim than some. It's very atmospheric. It's very visual. But I do feel like, you know, some of those cases maybe a little thinner than others. But the one thing that John Carpenter does so well in almost all of his movies, most of the ones that I've seen, is how he builds this world, because I felt like I was getting lost in the movie. Like for a little bit, I kind of forgot I was watching a movie. I was just lost in the story, and it's kind of rare at this point, especially when, you know, watching movies for this podcast, I'm not always watching them on the screen they deserve to be watched on. A lot of times I might be watching them on my phone. I might be watching them in several parts over the course of a couple of days, as opposed to just getting to sit down and just watch it, you know, for an hour and 40 minutes straight. And so sometimes, you know, especially lately, it feels tough to get kind of lost in the movie. Like I would really love to. Like when I go see it in the theater, I always kind of almost feel that way no matter what the movie is, because you're in a dark space where all you've got is the screen in front of you. You're not going anywhere for the next hour and a half to 2 hours. And this one, I want to go pick up the 4K collector's edition that you were showing earlier, because this one, I watched it on my phone, and that is not the way that this movie was meant to be watched. So when I have the opportunity, I definitely need to put this on my TV that I've got upstairs and turn off all the lights and enjoy it the way it's supposed to be enjoyed.
Yeah, the cinematography is just outstanding in this film. I mean, as you said, the world building, everything about this movie just does such a great job. You don't have to know anything about H.P. Lovecraft, as Pat admitted, and you get just enough that you understand through what Carpenter and Mike DeLuca, the writer, and the cinematography just pulls everything together. It is just such a wonderful meld of all the elements, everything just coming together, where you do have this perfect little world built where you understand it, even though it should absolutely not make any sense at all. They just do a very good job of selling it to the audience, and you are there for the ride.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else we want to say about this one? We've talked about the music is awesome as usual. We've talked about the world building of this, just some of the background. Yeah, Rob.
One little tiny thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned the scene where she comes out of the car and she's all twisted up.
Mm-hmm.
Carpenter said that that was added into the movie because they met a stripper who could do that contortioning.
Okay.
And he said that, they decided to do that scene and she couldn't stay upside down for too long. Otherwise it was too much. And producer Sandy King was kind of ribbing him, saying, well, how did you do that? And he was like, well, I was kind of into that back then. Meaning going to strip joints. So it was kind of a funny thing. They just added it into the movie because he met this lady who could do this. So that's cool.
That's outstanding. That's awesome. I love stories like that.
That's fantastic. We need that in our movie.
Yes. That's great. What would you like to do next?
Yeah, there it is.
All right. It is time for, I think if we haven't lost our sanity completely, I think it might be time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions.
3 questions.
Well, were they psychos? Or?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things.
I'm not interrupting anything, am I? You really look deep in thought.
So I'll ask you the questions and then we'll see, all right?
All right. 3 questions. Question number 1. What is your favorite use of an axe in a movie? A lot of axes in this one.
Mm-hmm. I have 2. Obviously, Evil Dead.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. There is a scene where there's a girl running around. She had just come out of the shower. She has a towel on, and she's running. And Jason just threw a house, through the entire house, throws this axe, and you see the axe go whoop, 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 whoop. It hits her right in the chest, and she goes flying.
I remember that part.
It is one of the most amazing stunts and makeup effect scenes ever. So that one always sticks out with me. As soon as I saw that question, I was like, oh, the axe scene from Friday the 13th, Part 4.
Yeah.
So
that's outstanding. Patrick, I have to ask you a question. What is your favorite use?
Yeah. Favorite use of an axe?
Yeah.
I've got 2 that probably would seem kind of random. I would have to say Lord of the Rings.
That's where I thought you were going. Yeah.
Gimli. I mean, I kind of.
And my axe.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of it. But I guess if I was going to have to call a second, I'd have to just say Backdraft and some of the scenes where they're going through the fires and having to use the fire axes and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, nice. I would like to taunt our Oklahoma contingent of friends and say that Alien 3 has my favorite use of an axe.
Oh boy.
As Dylan has to go re-educate some of the brothers, and they got to talk about some matters of the spirit, as he's carrying around his axe from time to time in the movie. That is not going to be my answer. I'm just picking on certain people.
Okay.
They're asking for it.
Thank you.
Oh boy.
Yeah. They can't handle it. But yeah. I kind of was a little bit back and forth on this. Evil Dead was obviously one of the ones I was thinking of. Wait, it's a trick. Get an axe. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with another movie in which the axe is used to brutally murder someone, or was it? Do you like Huey Lewis in the News? I'm gonna go with the scene from American Psycho.
American Psycho was a consideration, and also The Shining.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah. Nothing is going to escape my brain than watching the axe go flying through the air and that girl just go flying out the door.
I didn't even think of that one. I love that scene. Yeah. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite Sam Neill role?
I have to say Dr. Grant in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in that. A close second is probably this one for me.
I probably would have put them in that order too. I need to see Possession. Like I said, it's on my watch list. I need to see that one. I probably would have said Jurassic Park, like top of the list, no matter what. And now having seen this one, I feel like I got to put this one as like a 1.5 option because I really loved him in this movie. He's a little bit more subdued. There's a movie that I watched recently that it was a real funny movie, a movie out of New Zealand called Hunt for the Wilder People. I came across this one on one of the streaming platforms, might have been Netflix at one point. I was just looking for something to watch. And it had the kid from Deadpool 2. I recognized him kind of right away. And a much older looking Sam Neill in this one. And it was hilarious. It was, I think Taika Waititi is the director of that. So I'm like, okay, well, we've got a good combination of stuff. That kid is hilarious in Deadpool 2. I love Sam Neill. Taika Waititi, especially when he's doing, actual New Zealand movies, when he's doing some Kiwi movies. I do like those a little bit better than some of his other, like Thor Ragnarok was okay. Not my favorite of the Marvel movies, but I do like it when he's doing something that probably is a little bit more closer to home because I think it fully brings out his sense of humor and his skills as a director. So I'm going to say Jurassic Park is my top choice, with this movie being a 1.5 and maybe Hunt for the Wilder People being a 2 or a 2.5.
Sam Neill actually took this role thinking this movie was a comedy.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, John Carpenter said that. He's like, and John Carpenter said that the only reason he could figure out that why he thought that initially was because of the interactions with the poor lady that went along with him. I can't remember the character's name off the top of my head. Linda. Yeah. He said that, Sam Neill kind of treated her like his girl Friday. Mm-hmm. And that's how most of the interactions went for most of it. And then he realized that he was in a much different movie later on.
Yeah. That's outstanding. Pat, did we get yours? Did you go the Jurassic Park route?
You know what? I Jurassic Park's got to be right up there. Although I would also put down, was he Vasily Borodin in Hunt for Red October? I really enjoyed him in there.
Yeah.
would be my number 2 choice.
Well, and speaking of fun interactions, question number 3, you should never throw chips at a driver. What are your favorite kind of chips?
You can never go wrong with Cool Ranch Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
Never. Those are the perfect chip. I don't think they've done anything better since those came out. They're always consistent. My second, and this is kind of a cop out, but I love Fritos.
Oh yeah,
Fritos corn chips.
I think I was growing up in Texas. I think I was raised on Fritos and Dr. Pepper. So,
of course,
hence the diabetes. But
oh, jeez.
We all make sacrifices.
Yes.
Yeah, you've mentioned a whole bunch of great ones anyway. I'm gonna go with, actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with a couple of different choices because I can go all day Doritos, Fritos, any of that. I'm actually gonna go with a couple of different choices. There was a brand of chips that, and who knows if they were as good as I remember them being. I just remember them, as a kid when I would leave school. When we lived over in England, I would leave school. I'd head down to one of the newsstands in town, and they sold comics, and they, like once a month, they had the big like magazine format Alien comic that I would buy. So I'd pick up my Alien comic, and then I'd head down to the other shop that had, I could pick up like chips and a drink, and I'd have that on the way home while I was walking home from school. And they had this brand of chips in England called the Real McCoys. And they had a barbecue flavored, which seems weird, British barbecue flavored chips. I remember those being so good. So I'm going to put that there, but then I'm also going to say I've always been a fan, and this is from having lived in England. I'm always a fan of the salt and vinegar chips too. Like I got a lot of friends and family can't handle the salt and vinegar. They don't want to have anything to do with it, which is totally fine. More for me. So if I could get a good salt and vinegar chip, then I am good to go with that one.
My wife loves Pringles salt and vinegar.
Oh, those are good.
Crisps.
Mm-hmm.
Crisps.
The Pringles ones are good too, because I do feel like some salt and vinegar chips can be a little too strong, and I feel like the Pringles ones are not. It's not too strong. Like you get just enough of the flavor, but it doesn't like overpower you. You're not starving for water because you've had so much salt put into your body.
Exactly. You don't feel like you just ate sand.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, Patrick, if your answer does not include Eric Estrada, I don't know what kind of chips you're talking about.
There's a lot that I can go to after you make a statement like that, John. It's late and everything's a good idea. Sort of like, and I mean this in a non-derisive way, sort of like this movie, right? It sounds like, because these guys were making it, it's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's put that in there. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's have them do that. Okay.
What chips would you eat in your descent to madness, Pat?
Yeah, all of the chips, John. I want to eat all of the chips. I got to be honest. I like tortilla chips, but like the ones that are like just baked, right? Like fresh, like I don't know how to describe them anymore. Not just restaurant style, but like ones that came right out of the frying pan type of thing. Because I like chips as a means of conveyance for, heaping mounds of whatever you like to put on your
some guac, some salsa,
guac salsa, or sometimes it's like I will make like a whole salad of veggies, including hot peppers that you have to wear the rubber gloves and not touch your eyes after chopping them up, and beans, and just make all that stuff and just mix that all up, layer of chips, put that on top, and just go to town. I would say that would be my favorite kind of chip. If I was looking for some just to open up and munch on, I'll be honest with you, like original baked Lay's, just the original, like the little crisps are really good. But then same thing with Ruffles, same thing with, just Pringles, all the,
If they
I
have
tend to love
salt
salts.
if they have salt and don't snap as soon as you put them in dip, they're pretty decent.
Yep. So
I will say though, those restaurant tortilla chips, when the restaurant makes them fresh there,
yeah,
and they can be as thin as they want to, and they can even fall apart a little bit if they need to. But when the restaurant does the tortilla chips just right, then nothing beats a good fresh made Mexican restaurant tortilla chip.
yeah, agreed. Or even sometimes you go to some of the places that are like Mediterranean places or Italian places, and they have the little it's like their pita. Well, I guess Italian wouldn't have pita chips, but you know what I'm saying? Like the Mediterranean stuff, like pita chips with hummus and vegetables, like that hits the spot too.
All right. Well, now we've made each other very hungry. And so we're Pat's probably going to go have some food. I'm probably going to go watch Possession. Rob, you can pick which one you want. If you want to eat, you go with Pat. If you want to watch Possession, you can come with me. And
well, since I've been camped out in the backyard, I guess I'm coming inside tonight.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, come on inside. We'll let you inside.
I gave you a real Sophie's choice there, but
I just want to say one last thing. In the ending of the commentary, Carpenter commented on the ending of the film. How did you interpret the ending of the film? Did you interpret it as the end of the world, as the apocalypse, or something different?
I interpreted it as the end of the world. Like in the back of my mind, I did think, is the world really okay? And it's just this man who has gone insane. That I could see that being an interpretation, but I think when I came, and especially knowing that it's very loosely a trilogy of movies about the end of the world and the end of humanity. When I get to the end of that, I'm thinking this is kind of like the perfect ending to that, because the other movies, and it's been a while, it's been a minute since I've watched Prince of Darkness, but I feel like The Thing, and from what I remember of Prince of Darkness, it's a little ambiguous as to whether humanity is going to survive. It's like, well, the danger is still out there, or maybe is it still out there? We don't know. In this one, I kind of felt like you got to the end, and it's like, oh no, it's not ambiguous at all. We're done for. Like, this is the end. You're watching society collapse around you, and he may be the last guy left on Earth, and he's watching the movie, and he's having a good old laugh, and this is how humanity, unlike democracy, which dies with thunderous applause, this is how humanity dies, is a man laughing maniacally in a theater watching himself on the screen. That's my takeaway from the end of the movie.
As was mine.
Okay.
What about you, Pat?
Oh, man. I am probably not the guy to ask this one, because I'm kind of I struggle with ambiguous endings with movies, but I would say
you and my mother would get along great, because she hates endings that are not tied up in a little bow.
Yeah. I mean,
but did the luck dragon eat the bullies, Pat?
What was that?
Did the luck dragon eat the bullies?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Is did that happen? I guess I would have to. What the heck? I'll go with our illustrious host here. I'll say that that it was the end of the world.
John Carpenter said that the ending of the movie is the ending of one reality becoming another.
Oh.
Now take that as you will, because that kind of left me with, that's not what I got, but okay, John, you're the boss. So that's a little rumination for you. And maybe it'll make more sense on additional viewings. But to me, hearing that this evening, I was like, okay, that's more ambiguous than I thought it was.
Right. Okay. I think on additional viewings, I'll have more thoughts about it. But yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's all I have, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for being with us. We've got to spend a lot of great time with you in October this year. So it was a lot of fun having you around for all these episodes. And I could just about guarantee we'll see you again before next October. We tend to find plenty of movies that we love talking about. So
absolutely, I am always happy to be here, and I am always appreciative that you guys invite me in. We've had some interesting ones this month. There's been some like ringers. I mean, absolute ringers. I could have been on every single episode, and I'm glad that I restrained myself and didn't demand to be on every single episode. So, but thank you. You guys are always gracious, and I love the show, and I love what you guys do. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. It's great hanging out with you. And I've loved your perspective, and I've especially in an area of movies that I'm not totally knowledgeable in. It's fun to hear the discussions, and so that's how I'm supposed to look at. Oh, okay, well, like it. So I really appreciate it, and it's great getting to know you even more and hanging out with you and talking movies.
All right, everybody. This is the end of the month of madness with the Mouth of Madness. We have done on Patreon, we've got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, and then our Patreon shorts are Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation from 1994, and Joker Folie à Deux from 2024. This month we have done Della Morte dell'Amore. We've done Interview with the Vampire. We've done Wes Craven's New Nightmare. We did Wolf last week, and we finished it off this week with In the Mouth of Madness. And now that the world has come to an end, and we have stared into the mouth of madness, we're coming out on the other side to the month of November, where we talk about work-life balance. Our Patreon episode for the month of November will be The River from 1984. The Patreon short will be The Ref from 1994. Our regular episodes in the month of November, in which we talk about the work-life balance and sometimes how that can be a bit of a struggle, will be Clerks, Renaissance Man, who I believe we've also got another Patreon co-executive producer joining us for that one. And nice. Then we have The Paper, and then we end the month with It Could Happen to You. So we've got some fun ones coming up in November as we try to decide, what is the work-life balance? Or do we just go quit and write a novel that ends the world? Not that I've thought about that recently, regularly, daily, hourly, momentarily, like right now.
I thought you finished the rough draft of it last week, John. This is my understanding.
I was working on it. Chapter 1, knock out the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Gentlemen, as always, a pleasure. If we make it through to the end of October and reality does not fall apart, then I hope to see you very, very, very soon.